Okay, thank you, Carol. Um, I'll share my screen. Just a few seconds. Mm, Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, today, so hello everyone, and welcome to the web page UX design discussion. Um, we are going to take a broad look of what a good web experience looks like, and today's discussion is about web page UX design. So we will be talking about designing successful web pages based on content priority, visual design, and the right page components to meet objectives. Starting with a quick check-in question. I would like to launch a poll and ask you, if you look at this door, please tell me if it's a push or a pull door. Let me run the poll, and you have around 40 seconds. Okay, so far I have 11 responses. Okay, oh, that's interesting. Okay, so almost all of you answered it's a pull door, but sometimes people misuse the handles for what the door is actually equipped to do. That's why some might answer it's a push door. So there are no affordances sometimes for things in our daily life, like hinting how someone would use this thing. And these doors are called the Norman doors, which have the wrong affordances for what their action ultimately does. So for today's agenda, um, we will start with the foundation. We will talk about web standards, what attracts attention, scrolling, how users scan. We will also address information needs, text formatting, scannability. We will also talk about responsive considerations, layering content and pages, scrolling, and layering structure. Moving on to the interaction, we will talk about signifiers, call to actions, and talk more specific in the visual design about imagery. So starting with the foundation, again, I'll launch another poll and ask you what attracts attention in this screenshot. We also have 40 seconds to answer. Okay, I'll share the results. I'll end the poll and share the results. Um, so most of you answered the right uh, the right option, which is text over red background. Well, that's because it has more visual weight than the rest of the content. Also, the open tab is also prominent on that page. So what does it mean to have a high performing page? High value pages is how page elements influence user behavior and page effectiveness. We should also leverage the priority spot. So the main user goals and key pieces of information are designed for prominence among the page content. This is an example from Greenpeace Canada. So readers first scan from left to right and at the top of a section or page. So we should always place the text to the left side of the screen. And the image of a human face is a powerful thing since the eye is naturally drawn to the face. Again, I would like to launch a poll and ask you to do a squint test and try to guess what's most attracting attention on this page. Mhm. Okay, so I'll share the results, and most of you answered it's the piece of pizza. That's true because we can see it has more visual weight than the rest of the elements on the page. And when I say visual weight, it means the visual weight depends on several factors such as the size, the color, etc. Uh, in the next slide, you can see that I've shifted the content to the left side and made the call to actions more prominent. So what draws now the attention for users is the left side of the screen and not the pizza. And as a hot tip, we need to create defined page goals, put them on paper and align them around. So we need to define first the priority, like what content should be prioritized on the page before start to design or create that page. Explain also what the site offers. So the first impressions are important, and we need to aim to give a sense of the overall organization and its offering. In this example, the content above the fold, and when I say content above the fold, it means the portion of the web that is visible without scrolling. It does not communicate who they are and what they do. And if I go to this example, we can see that this website, this is a very good example. It explains what the company offers and what they do. Minimizing friction for loyal users. So friction in UX, it means like everything that prevents a website users from achieving their goals. So for example, this was a task given to someone to log in. And in the first screenshot, the user didn't find the login in its expected location, and eventually it was in one of these title menu. In the second screenshot, the uh, the website was improved and the login is back to its expected place. So how users view a page, there are four things to know. How standards impact expectations, what attracts attention, what influence whether a user will scroll, and how users scan and what they look for during common tasks. How standards impact expectations. Um, yeah. So this is another example or a test for a user to look for the search or search for a specific piece of information on the website. And I mean here the screenshot in the background. The user looked for the search bar for like around 3 minutes and he finally found it to the left side of the screen. So people transfer knowledge from other places on the web. This is known as the knowledge transfer. And the fact is that we shouldn't stray too far from web standards, and this will create confusion for our users. Expected places yields fewer fixations. That's true. So for the task for these two examples, find where you would search. If we look to the left side of the screen, we see that there's more fixation, more heat maps on the search bar, and this means that the users found it quickly. Whereas there are more heat maps that is more distributed, means that they search more. So as a hot tip, we shouldn't stray too far from web standards for common elements. A magnifying glass is okay for search, but an open search field is better. What attracts attention? Breaking the grid, sometimes direct attention, and for better or worse. In the first block here, we see that the pop image most attracts attention because it has more visual weight. It's larger than the rest of the images. Whereas in the second example, breaking the grid does not serve the purpose of attracting attention since the white space to the right is attracting attention. So we should be mindful when we need to break the grid. Balance also attracts attention. We have symmetrically balanced component and asymmetrically balanced. Symmetry is like an arrangement of elements so that they are evenly distributed to the left and to the right of the center. Asymmetrically is an arrangement of unlike objects of equal weight on each side of the page. So we see here the dark brown solid background is asymmetrically balanced with the curtains. Okay. Again, I would like to share or launch a poll with you and ask you what sentence what sentence best describes this page composition? Just a second. Okay. Is it that the composition is unbalanced or is the white space is that the white space enhanced readability and made the content easier to read? Okay. I'll share the results. So most of you answered the first one, which is that the composition is unbalanced. That's true, because if you look at uh, the above the fold content, we see that more visual weight is to the right side of the screen, whereas there's a lot of white space to the left, which is distracting to the eye. So on the next screen, uh, yeah, so the visual weight is much more stronger in a single area within the composition. This is again a balanced layout. So the form draws the eye asymmetrically balanced with emotional imagery and content. So now the form is asymmetrically balanced with the human image. And this is also another example where the form is asymmetrically balanced with the texture of the image. Again, unbalanced compositions create discomfort and users may feel uncomfortable and leave the page. The visual weight, as we mentioned earlier, each element on a layout has a visual weight that is determined by these factors. First, we have the size, the placement, the color, density, proximity, and texture. Proximity is the practice of placing related elements close together, and separating unrelated elements can be seen almost everywhere in the UI. What influences whether users will scroll? Um, People still spend their time at the top. So 57% of viewing time is above the fold, and 74% viewing time is in the first two screen folds. So as a hot tip, we need to place the most important information at the top of the page. In this screenshot, this was a task for a user to explore the page. So she ended up clicking on the get started call to action uh, without viewing the rest of the content. This is called the illusion of completeness because of the large hero image that is consuming the entire height of the window. And this design is misleading because it includes a call to action button like get started, and users believe that they can't get more information unless they click on the button. That's what's commonly known as false floor. This is also examples of the false floor where we have the large hero image and a single call to action button. So what to do in this case? It's better to add an information sent. So information sent leads users down the page. It is the extent to which users can predict what they will find if they pursue a certain path on a website or page. We see here in the example, there's a cut-off content. So we need to add a cut-off content like headings, images, and cut-off content is a better signifier than arrows in terms of visual weight. How users scan and read. This is a test for a user to search for the search bar. So users fixate on those page elements that are relevant to their task. The same page will be processed differently by the same users when their goal changes. So we can see that there's a large dot. Large dot means that the eye fixated more on this part of the screen. Another goal, I need a specific piece of information. So the test task was a friend sent you this article to see if there's anything interesting to know about bird flu. So the things that the users search for where people are looking for clues within text, like colored, bold, italic, all caps or underlined text, numbers written as numerals, text with codes, trademarks, copyright, or other symbols attached. Again, this is another task where we needed to study the page enough that they feel they could pass a quiz about this page. We can see that the large dots are all over the page. It means that the users scanned literally every single element on that page. Whereas if we change the goal, for example, this screenshot to the left, like which places look the nicest to you, we see that the eye fixates more on the images because they are comparing the places. And when they were asked which hotels is the most affordable, we see that the users fixated more on the prices. So again, the same page is processed differently by the same users when the goal changes. Moving on to content. Horizontal attention. As we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, that users spend 80% of their time viewing at the left side of the page. They only spend 20% viewing the right side. The F pattern reading. The more time and fixation spent at the beginning of lines of text and at the top of a page. Later people result to scanning. Um, The F pattern occurs mostly on traditional formats without headings or content chunking. And there are three tips for web layouts. First, use conventional top or left navigation formats. The content plays slightly higher and to the left will have higher chance of getting looked at. Keeping the secondary content on the right and reserve priority spots for priority content. Also, we need to establish typographic hierarchy. Um, to create content chunks, we need to add strong headings, strong subheadings, short paragraphs, bullets, boldings, and white space so that users can easily scan our pages. Also, as a rule of thumb, we need to avoid fluffy text. So fluffy text will make users leave the page uh, without scanning the whole page. So as a rule of thumb, it's better to put the bottom line up front, meaning conclusion must come first, so that we can give the user an incentive to read the whole article or story or whatever. This is a study for zigzag vice aligned images. And what's interesting is that for both websites, both layouts appear to be equally effective. Okay, now we will talk about priority and layering. Okay, prioritizing content. Transition, transition pages help users make quick transitions. So transition pages are pages like homepage, top level section overview, listing page. The primary goal of these pages is to overview what's available and to aid decision making. And the secondary goal is to have a new or special topic or products. Whereas the destination page is a landing page like articles, product descriptions, about us pages. And the primary goal for these pages is to give a specific piece of information about a topic or product. And the secondary goal is is like for branding, related content, navigation for other categories. We see here in the screenshot that the best practices is to directly add the navigation menu at the top, because some users might not find the menu and may leave the page. So it's better to be straightforward and add the menu at the very top. The listing pages, uh, too many information on the listing pages can overwhelm users and create a cluttered appearance. And on the other hand, a list entry without enough details leaves too many questions unanswered. So we need to make a compromise for listing pages. Also, list entries should have their own mini information architecture. Uh, this is an example of a website, a booking, a flight booking website. And we see here that they prioritize the price and the airline name and the departure and arrival time. So we conclude that these three elements will have more visual weight on the page. So we need to determine the priority order of each attribute before we begin to think about the list entry layout and visual design later. List entries require a consistent layout. So the user goal here is to make a selection, and the scan pattern is comparison. The test tasks were which places look the nicest. Again, we see that in the first screenshot, the eye fixated more on the images and which hotels is the most affordable. We see that the eye fixates more on the prices. Also, we need to be very selective to avoid competing priorities. Too many callouts make it difficult to scan and compare. Uh, no priority icons and color codes add complexity, because if we added too many colors, then we will have this rainbow effect, which distract the user from getting to their goals. Responsive consideration. Okay, so there are three questions to ask. What content do we need? What is the priority of content on each device? Does the visual weight support content priority on each device? Okay, so this is an example. Looking at this example from Japan Times website, we see from desktop to tablet, there isn't that dramatic change. But what's interesting here is from tablet to mobile, we see much more significant change. As we can see that the images disappeared, but the fact here, we see that uh, the mobile and desktop version are not communicating because generally speaking, when thinking of a newspaper, you can tell which story is the most important one, usually because there's a photograph associated to that story. Uh, this case is happening with Nakazaki's story. So when looking at the first two screen folds on mobile, we see that on desktop, we see it's the most important story of the day. But when looking at the mobile version, we see that we have the stories on the left side of the first three folds of the screen. So we need to make sure that the desktop and mobile version are communicating. Moving on to layering and scrolling structure. Uh, so talking about progressive disclosure. So progressive disclosure in UX means initially showing users only the most important distinguishing information and disclose the rest upon request. Uh, like only when the user requests more details, then we show the rest of the details. This is a listing page, and they have a number of trips. So let's say someone is interested in one of these trips. At this point, we call it the comparison stage, and the user is shown only the price, length of the trips, and the destination. So when the user is ready, we show them more information, as in the screenshot to the right. So the details are there, but only offered when the user is ready for those details. The principles of common region. The principle of common region states that items within boundary are perceived as a group and assumed to share some common characteristics or functionality. Um, so the borders indicate that this is a unit and that there is a multiple items in that unit. So if you are looking at this screenshot, we have a bunch of recipes, and it looks like we have recipes and stars rating. The position of the stars is in close proximity to the row below. What's interesting is that the stars are related to the recipes before, so there isn't sufficient proximities here. The visual proximity does not reflect the grouping. Here on the right side, we have a background color, which helps establish the principle of common region. So this is the common region, and within this area are things related to each other. Tabs and accordions, when to use which. So tabs are when content chunks are narrow and deep, when we have less topics in the tabs, and deep meaning if there's like large paragraphs. And we use accordions when content chunks are broad and shallow. So when we have a lot of topics and our content is small, I would say. We need to consider also converting to accordions on mobile. Um, Accordions are better suited on mobile because if you have so many tabs on mobile, you will have this cut-off content of text for tabs. So to avoid the illusion of completeness, it's better to consider accordions. And accordions, we like to say like it's like a buffet of grazing because when you go to a buffet, you don't have the capacity to eat the entire buffet, so you're going to sample a little bit of each. And just the case with the accordions, users will sample just few items and will open only one or two at a time. So we do use accordions when users will just sample a few items, and we don't use it if users will need to open all of them, and also for comparison tasks. Carousels and film strips, when to use which. The drawbacks of carousels and film strips are some content is always hidden. The interaction cost can be high, and meaning that on every click, there's an animation that is going to happen. And it also requires short-term memory. That's right, because users need to remember what was on that click or two clicks ago. And carousels are used for featuring a small set of items, like five or less, and film strips are used for displaying a larger set of items, uh, more than five items, around more than five items, yes. Okay, now we reach the interaction part. Uh, I'll pause here and also share with you a poll, and I would like to ask you what is clickable on this page. Sorry, I spoiled it. Mhm. Results are coming in. Okay, so I'll share the results. So most of you answered the tabs and the outline boxes. And what's interesting is that these boxes aren't clickable. They are heading outlined by a border. And what's clickable on the page is the tabs, uh, the shop now call to action, and the top right elements. And this is called a flat design because it's opting for two-dimensional design. And this flat design is also called minimalist or clean design. So yeah, we need to be mindful when designing the elements because, as I mentioned, the rectangles weren't actually CTAs. They were headings that are bounded by a box. There are four criteria for an effective call to action. First, the language that resonate, the value, the clarity, and the placement when it's useful. If we have uh, multiple CTAs, we need to create a priority with those CTAs. Uh, if we have one action we want people to take, we should probably highlight it. So looking here, we can distinguish between the primary and secondary buttons. That's why we need to prioritize action within a grouping. And it should be painfully obvious what the primary call to action is. And we need to use placement and visual weight as cues. So in the second example, we see that we established a hierarchy for buttons. Since we want the action cancel to be less clicked, we made it less prominent. So now it's obvious that it's clear that the obvious step is send inquiry. We need to place CTAs where they aid decision making. So for a basic offering, it's better to place it at the top of the page since little information is needed to make a decision above the fold. And for complex offering, uh, it's better to place the call to action further down the page since more information required for making an informed decision. Visual weight, this is the last topic for today. Uh, Again, I think this is the last poll I will share with you. Um, mm, I would like to ask you to answer these questions. Um, which types of images do you think get more attention? A versus B and C versus D. Yes. So most of you chose A, which is simple background, and C, where we have single subject. So based on the statistics, here are the outcomes from eye tracking research. People spend 10% more on images with simple backgrounds versus images with complex backgrounds. If I were to guess why, it's probably because the competing elements of visual weight. Uh, in the first screenshot, it's clear what's the most important image. In the second screenshot, uh, the lack of definition often causes people to skip over it. Also, single subjects vice multiple. People spend more time on single subjects, probably because of the same reason. It's a bit more clear what the most important focal point compared to the multiple subject photo. And yeah, thank you very much. I was mindful with time. Questions, please. Um, Vladislav, yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
As usual, first of all, amazing presentation, and it was interesting how it's also was organized and easy to get information. Yeah. Um, I'm also maybe have two questions. For example, almost yesterday, I find AI tools that help you to design web pages, and it's interesting. That's how it works. You just log in and type your prompt, and you get draft design web page. It's what do you think about it, and do you use some services? And I will ask. The second question is about I'm right now developing visual app, and it contains a lot of information also about design. And if it's interesting for you or the team, we can transfer this presentation to the app just to have a guideline. It can be like a blog, or it can be a guideline how to create a web page. And also, I will appreciate if you check our visual app and give some suggestions. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Like answering your first question, uh, AI tools are very powerful, but for me, I would manually test the page because AI won't solve all the problems on the page. So the best way to test your page is to manually test it. And even there are a lot of plugins out there that point out the weak points on your page, but it's still the technology is not there yet. I hope I answered your question. And for the second point, I'm curious to see the app and maybe we can have like a discussion on the design very soon. Thank you. Fadi,
Hello,
hey.
thanks, Hussam. I wanted to ask if there is like a checklist for this. So we base upon like starting new pages for our websites. because you've talked about many elements there. Like these are for me like not most of them, but some of them are, like when you are giving the scientific name, it's not like the rational or the common sense. And I wanted to ask, because we have already patterns that we are using in P4 that are ready-made. So if you can as well mention the science behind them. And when you are testing, do you test on Optimizely, on Hotjar, because we've seen some heat maps, or which tool are you testing on? Thank you. Over.
Yeah. Well, the test results were not compiled by me. It was by the Nielsen Norman group. And for everything related to accessibility and best practices, we're trying to apply everything to the new block patterns and block pattern layouts. And that's a good idea to create a checklist in the future for websites who are curious to know more about their web page best practices. Okay. Any more questions? Okay. Over to you, Carol.
Yeah, are you sure? Cool. Well, thank you very much, Hussam. I think I speak for everyone when I say that was very helpful. Okay. I will do the checkout question, which I obviously thought, and it's not something Julia is telling me to do. Wait a minute. I think I have it right here. Checkout. Yeah, I will send the checkout poll, which is this one. Please answer truthfully. Julia, I cannot launch it. Can you launch it?
Let me check.
Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, so please fill it out. And we will have another design community call on February, the last days. We will announce it shortly, so be prepared. We would talk about the user personas. Taylor did research on this so that you can use this information on creating your content and a lot of things related to P4. Yeah, so I think everyone answered it already. Yep. Cool. Well, yeah, then give me a second. Okay. It's all good? Okay. Okay then. Well, thank you very much, everyone, and thank you, Hussam, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.